The combat arena buzzed with energy, the hum of the force fields vibrating through the floor. Xara Talon stood at the center, her breath steady and controlled. The lights above flickered, casting sharp shadows on the sleek, polished floor. She was ready, her body a coiled spring, eyes locked on her opponent. A towering alien, with 6 muscular arms and scales glistening like obsidian, loomed in front of her. His species, known for their immense strength, had been intimidating to most, but to Xara, he was nothing more than another challenge. She had fought beasts, survived in conditions harsher than anything this academy could simulate. Her stance was perfect, knees slightly bent, hands poised to strike. Her opponent sneered, his many eyes narrowing, already confident in his victory. The audience was a mix of cadets and instructors, all eagerly watching the duel. The bell rang. The alien lunged, all arms reaching for her in an overwhelming wave. Xara's instincts kicked in. She sidestepped the first strike, ducked the second, and with a swift move, grabbed one of the alien's arms, spinning him into a forceful throw. He crashed into the arena wall with a thud that rattled the room, his tail flicking in frustration. The cadets gasped, a murmur running through the crowd. Some were impressed, others uneasy. Xara's reputation as a Deathworlder was both her curse and her weapon. Her style was raw, relentless, unstoppable to most, but not what the Academy's instructors valued. Instructor Lyric Doran, standing just off to the side, his arms crossed, stared at her with cold eyes. "Enough," he called out, his voice sharp, cutting through the tense air. Xara froze, eyes locking onto him. She knew that tone. It was the same one he had used after every sparring match she'd ever fought in. Dismissal. Contempt. A judgment passed before the fight even began. She stepped back, lowering her stance, preparing for what would come next. Lyric's disapproval was inevitable. Her fighting style, chaotic and instinctive, always seemed to irk him. "You're not here to entertain with brute force," Lyric continued, his gaze cutting through her. "This academy is about precision, discipline. Your behavior is reckless." Xara clenched her jaw, her fists tightening at her sides. "I won. Isn't that what matters?" Lyric shook his head, his expression one of disgust. "You're banned from sparring for the rest of the semester, Cadet Talon. You're a liability, not a fighter." The words hit her like a slap. The arena, the cadets, the instructors, they all looked at her, but there was no support. Only the cold, clinical gaze of Lyric, the oppressive weight of his judgment. "But," Xara started, but Lyric raised his hand, silencing her. "No buts. You've had multiple warnings. If you can't adapt to our standards, you won't last here." His voice was cold, a finality hanging in the air. Xara felt the weight of those words press against her chest. Banned from sparring. It was everything she had worked for, everything she had trained for, all reduced to this single moment. Her muscles, honed from years of surviving on a planet that nearly killed her every day, seemed to lose their power. She had come to this academy to prove she was more than just the Deathworlder, to show that she could excel, to prove that humans, despite their violent origins, could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's elite. But here she was, cast aside once again. Not for her lack of skill, but because her methods didn't align with their idea of combat. The other cadets stood silently, their eyes flicking between her and Lyric, but no one spoke. Xara didn't need their sympathy. She didn't want it. She could already hear their whispers, the murmurs of doubt. She had known, deep down, that her presence here would always be a challenge, that her origins would never be forgotten. She wasn't like them. "You'll report to the Commandant's office for the full review of your actions, Cadet," Lyric's voice cut through her thoughts, as though he had read her mind. "You're dismissed." Xara didn't respond. She didn't need to. The arena's hum grew louder as she turned and walked toward the exit, her steps measured, deliberate. She wasn't broken. Not yet. But something inside her shifted. There was no way she would let this be the end of her journey here. She passed by the cadets, feeling their stares like needles in her back. A few gave her nods, half-hearted acknowledgments of her skill. But most looked away, avoiding the discomfort her presence stirred. She wasn't just a cadet, she was a symbol of something unsettling, a reminder that not all warriors adhered to the same rules. Outside the arena, the silence was deafening. The cold, metallic walls of the academy loomed around her, vast and indifferent. She walked to her quarters, the steady thrum of the ship's engines vibrating underfoot. Inside, the sterile, cramped space felt suffocating, like a cage. She dropped her duffel bag onto the floor, her mind racing. Banned. They couldn't do this. They wouldn't get away with it. She had proven herself time and time again, but this wasn't about her abilities. This was about her not fitting into their mold. Xara paced the room, her breathing becoming shallow. She had to prove them wrong. She wouldn't let Lyrek and the others decide her fate. They didn't understand what she was capable of. No one did. Her combat style wasn't chaos, it was adaptability. It was survival. And she wasn't done yet. With a sudden resolve, she turned toward the small terminal in the corner of her room. The Academy's surveillance feeds ran through it, the walls littered with training simulations, combat footage, and schedules. She wasn't allowed in the sparring rooms anymore, but she could still train. The bots, the automated sparring partners, were still available for use. Blindfolded. She'd train blindfolded. She'd take the fight to them, where they least expected it. Her instincts would carry her. The Deathworlder's spirit would carry her. They thought they could ban her. But they hadn't seen the last of Xara Talon. The quiet hum of the Academy's ventilation system was the only sound in the dimly lit sparring room. Xara Talon stood alone, her heart thumping in her chest, but her mind was focused. Her hands, calloused from years of brutal survival, clenched into fists. She had trained her whole life for moments like this, and now, with the Academy's surveillance systems tracking her every move, she had to be smarter. She had to adapt. The room was empty, save for the advanced training bots. Each one was an intricate piece of technology, designed to mimic real combat scenarios, its motions calculated, its strikes precise. Yet, for all its mechanical prowess, it had one fatal flaw: it wasn't alive. It didn't think the way she did. It didn't feel. Xara adjusted the blindfold, its black fabric covering her eyes, cutting off the room's harsh, artificial light. The world around her darkened, and she relied on the thumping of her pulse, the tension in the air, and the faint mechanical whirs of the bots. She knew what was coming. One bot, sleek in silver, moved forward, its sensors activating, scanning the air for her position. Xara's fingers twitched. In this moment, all that mattered was how she felt. Her every sense heightened. She could hear the soft buzz of the bot's movements, the scrape of its feet against the floor. Her body, trained in the unforgiving wilderness of her home planet, had learned to listen, to sense, to survive. The bot lunged. With a sharp turn, Xara ducked, just inches away from the bot's razor-sharp arm. She heard the whoosh of it slicing through the air, just missing her. Her hands shot up, grabbing the bot's extended limb. With one powerful motion, she twisted it, using its momentum to throw it off balance. It stumbled backward. She wasn't thinking, she was reacting. Her body moved without hesitation, like a well-oiled machine of instinct. She swept the bot's feet out from under it, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound of metal against metal echoed in the room. Xara's breath quickened, her body already preparing for the next move. This wasn't about raw strength or speed, it was about learning the rhythm of the fight, understanding how the bot moved and how she could predict it, even without seeing it. The challenge wasn't physical, it was mental. The blindfold wasn't a hindrance, it was a way to sharpen her focus. Another bot entered the fray, this one larger and more menacing, its movements faster, its sensors more sensitive. It circled her, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. She felt it. A slight shift in the air. The change in the bot's footfall. Before it could strike, Xara was already in motion, ducking low and driving her elbow into its core. A surge of satisfaction ran through her as the bot staggered back, its sensors flickering. But it wasn't finished. It adjusted and charged again, faster this time. Xara's heartbeat surged, but she stayed calm. She let the bot come to her. Patience. She sidestepped its attack and, in a fluid motion, drove her palm into the side of its head, sending it spinning into the wall. The whirring of its systems failed for a second before it rebooted, rising again. But Xara didn't pause. She was already moving, and before the bot could regain full function, she delivered a finishing blow, a rapid strike to its central power core. The bot collapsed, its systems shutting down. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, but there was no time for satisfaction. The training session wasn't over. There were still more bots to face. Xara wiped the sweat from her forehead, her muscles burning with exertion. She couldn't stop, not yet. Not until she proved that she was more than the system's label for her. She reached for another bot, its metallic frame clicking into action, its eyes glowing in eerie blue. The final test. The bot moved with purpose, closing the distance between them with alarming speed. This time, it wasn't about waiting for it to make the first move. Xara attacked first, her body blurring with speed as she launched herself at the bot. Her fists connected with the bot's chest plate, denting it with the sheer force of her strike. But it wasn't enough. The bot retaliated, striking her midsection with a blow that sent a shock through her core. Pain shot up her ribs, but Xara didn't falter. She grinned, a grim smile, her hand shooting out to grab the bot's arm as it moved to strike again. With a powerful twist, she flipped it over her shoulder. The bot crashed to the ground, its metallic body skidding across the floor. She was already on her feet, moving before the bot could recover. This time, she didn't wait. She moved in for the kill, her legs sweeping low, sending the bot crashing to the ground in a pile of sparks and metal. The last bot powered down. Xara stood, breathing hard, sweat dripping down her brow, but there was a glimmer in her eyes. She had done it. Blindfolded. Alone. She hadn't needed their rules or their approval. She could hear the distant hum of the Academy's security systems, but the thought didn't faze her. This wasn't about them. This was for herself. Her mind replayed the sequence of the fight, analyzing every move, every strike, the rhythm of each bot's actions. Adapt, survive. Her body had obeyed, and now, her mind was sharpening. She didn't need to see the fight, she could feel it. Xara took a deep breath, wiping the blood from her lip. It stung, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered now but proving that she wasn't just a Deathworlder. She wasn't just a weapon of chaos. She was something more. As the bot's power core flickered to life one last time, she smiled to herself. They'd see. In the quiet aftermath of her victory, she allowed herself a brief moment of peace. Then, she started again. Another bot, another challenge. She was far from finished. The Academy's combat arena was silent as Xara stood at its center, the cold metal walls surrounding her like a prison. The energy of the place was palpable, heavy with anticipation. It was the final test, the moment she had been waiting for, and the moment she had feared. She could hear the murmurs of the cadets seated in the stands, their eyes fixed on her, but she blocked them out. The only sound that mattered now was the rhythmic pounding of her heart. The large, hulking figure of the advanced bot loomed across from her, its joints whirring as it recalibrated. This bot wasn't like the others she'd faced. It had been designed with the highest level of combat technology, faster, stronger, smarter. Its movements were too precise, too calculated, and it had already taken down some of the Academy's best. But for all its technological superiority, it wasn't alive. It didn't know how to adapt the way she did. Xara took a slow, deep breath. She was blindfolded, the familiar darkness now comforting, grounding her. Her senses had sharpened, each breath feeling like a surge of power through her body. She had no need for sight. She had trained her instincts, learned to feel the shifts in the air, the faint sounds of movement, the change in pressure on the floor beneath her feet. This fight would be no different. The arena doors slammed shut behind her, and Instructor Larek Doran's voice echoed through the speakers. Cadet Talon, you are to defeat this bot in any manner you see fit. Should you succeed, your ban will be lifted. Should you fail, you will be expelled. The challenge hung in the air like a dark cloud. Lyric's words were the ultimatum she had been waiting for. One victory, one chance to prove herself. There was no turning back now. Xara didn't need to hear the countdown. She knew what she had to do. Her body tensed, every muscle alert. The bot moved first, its footfalls heavy against the floor as it advanced. Xara could feel the change in the air as it shifted toward her. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, and then it was upon her. A blur of motion, fast and unyielding. Xara instinctively sidestepped, feeling the air rush past her as the bot's fist shot forward, narrowly missing her face. She felt the shockwave of its strike, the pressure of its speed. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She spun, grabbing the bot's arm as it swung again, using its own momentum to spin it into a wild arc. It crashed into the ground with a metallic clang, but it was quick to rise, recalibrating, ready to strike again. Not bad, she muttered under her breath, her lips curling into a faint grin. But there was no time to celebrate. The bot was already back on its feet, coming for her again. This time, Xara didn't wait for it to make the first move. She darted forward, closing the gap between them with a fluid movement, striking low to take out its legs. The bot's frame buckled slightly as she hit its knee joint, but it adapted quickly, shifting its weight and using its other leg to kick her away. She hit the floor hard, but in a blink, she was back on her feet, the sting of the fall barely registering. The pain didn't matter. She would never stop moving. Never stop fighting. Come on, then, she growled, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She wasn't fighting just for herself anymore. She was fighting for every Deathworlder who had been underestimated, every human who had been told they were too reckless, too unpredictable. She would not let Lyric's words be the final judgment of her worth. The bot lunged again, this time faster, its limbs moving in synchronized patterns, as though it had learned from their previous encounters. Xara's heart raced. The room was a blur, the bot's movements a whirlwind of speed and power, but she was ready. Her body moved with the precision of a practiced dancer, but with the force of a predator. She sidestepped its strike, feeling the air shift as its fist passed mere inches from her face. Then, in a flash, she was underneath it, grabbing hold of one of its legs and flipping it onto its back. The audience gasped. Xara felt the surge of energy in her chest, but she didn't stop. There was no room for hesitation, no time for rest. The bot's systems were resetting, its limbs twitching, recalculating its strategy. But Xara knew how to strike when it was at its weakest. She launched herself forward, landing on the bot's chest, her knees pressing into its torso. She raised her fist, feeling the power in her muscles, the strength that had kept her alive in the most unforgiving places. Then, with a forceful punch, she struck the bot's core. A shockwave of energy rippled through its frame, and it stilled. For a moment, the arena was silent. The bot's lights flickered once before they went dark. The crowd held its breath. Xara stood atop the fallen machine, her chest heaving with exhaustion, but her eyes burning with fierce triumph. She had done it. Her heart was still racing, but it didn't matter now. The arena was silent, the air still, as she slowly pulled off her blindfold. The room was a blur of faces, but one stood out. Lyric Doran, his expression unreadable, staring at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, finally, Lyric's voice came through the speakers, low and steady. "Cadet Talon," he said, his tone surprising her with a trace of respect, "you've proven yourself. You are no longer banned from sparring." However, he paused, his gaze unwavering. "You still have much to learn." Xara stood tall, wiping the sweat from her brow. The words stung, but she had expected no less. The fight was never going to be about winning his approval. It was about proving her own worth, and today, she had done just that. The cadets began to clap, a slow, hesitant applause that grew louder, more genuine. Some had doubted her. Some had called her reckless, unpredictable. But now, there was no denying it. Xara Talon was more than just a Deathworlder. She was a force to be reckoned with. The Academy would never be the same again.